Hello and welcome to Perfectly Paranormal, episode 39. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons, and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. And today we're uncovering paranormal tactics that dark energy beings use to unhinge energy workers. We're going to look at why they feel threatened when energy workers, especially psychics, mediums, house healers or house cleansers, enter a location, and some of their sneaky tactics that they use to distract your mind and upset your thinking. This also relates to other people, because everyone has psychic skills, whether you believe in them or not. We all have that gut instinct. We all have the intuition and we all have the awareness. Even if you don't fully believe in it or utilise them in daily life, they are there. And energy beings pick up on those who are psychically open, is the term I usually use. So over the years, I've experienced many unseemly tactics from dark and demonic level beings who feel threatened by a human being. Like seriously, you wouldn't think that dark or demonic beings would be threatened by humans. But my work really does challenge them on a very deep level. I always treat them with respect, but they love to use tactics such as nightmarish dreams, electric shocks on my eyelids, extreme brain fog, and even poking me in the throat, creating sudden gagging coughs. Now these just name a few of the tactics that I've experienced over the years, but none of them come close to a recent local experience that I had in the north of Tasmania this year. And I've called this experience No Entry Allowed. Now, I was in the north of Tasmania recently visiting a friend, and she sent me to the local health food shop to get a few items. Now, I was looking over my list, and as I approached the shop, my head started to spin. Now, I just figured that this shift in energy was coming from the nearby car park where there were two women who were arguing and swearing at the top of their voices. So I really took no notice of this symptom and I just pushed on into the shop. Now, as I entered the premises, I felt a presence, a very heavy, energetic something about 4 metres beyond the shop doorway. Now, this is quite normal for me, as spirits, dark and demonic beings are located in many places, and generally I just ignore them. I just go about my business, go to the shop, go to the library, go to the bank. So I ignored this increasing feeling of supernatural interference, and I just looked at my shopping list again. Now, the items I needed were spread out all over the shop, so I thought I would start at the back and work to the front. So as I went to step forward, like seriously, this is where it gets to be quite funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but I can look back at it now and have a bit of a giggle. I felt a very strong pushback as I tried to step forward. It was like an energetic force field, an energetic barrier, and this was something that I'd never felt before. Now, I lifted my right foot to walk forward again, and I nearly fell over. It was so embarrassing, all these people in this shop. And people were getting a little bit impatient. They're looking at me going, "What is wrong with you?" Oh my goodness. And people started just pushing past me. And they'd look back at me strangely as they just filed off into the back recesses of the shop, picking up their items and putting them in their baskets. And all I could do was just kind of stand there, looking very bewildered, wondering what they were thinking and what the heck was going on. I mean, what was this energetic barrier? I've been doing this work a very long time, and I've never felt an energetic force field like this one before. Now, I'm very strong-minded, and I was determined to get these items on my list. So I stepped to the side, pretended to read a bread bag label, and I just kind of occasionally looked up and was surveying what was going on in this store. Now, I can tell you exactly what I saw. When I slightly squinted my eyes and just softened my gaze, I could see a thick, misty type of barrier that seemed to affect me, but nobody else. And as I looked into the shop even further through my softened gaze, I could see dark movement. Like there was 3 or more of these dark apparitions, these dense energy beings, moving about in the shop. They were totally unseen by other people in the shop. And these energy beings didn't speak to me at all. They didn't talk to me in my third eye, they didn't talk to me in my mind, but every step that I tried to take forward, they pushed back 10 times harder. And my chest was starting to hurt. My heart chakra and sometimes my physical heart can experience palpitations. Now, they're not medical. I've had it all checked out and I have a very strong heart. So I just stood there and I'm like, how am I going to get what I need from this shop? Now, I didn't want to create a crazy scene and look like a real nutcase. So I just grabbed the items that I could from the list and I stood at the checkout, waiting to be served. Now, the checkout attendant eyed me over. I think she'd probably been watching me the whole time. Oh, my goodness. You'd think I'd be used to all these odd, weird happenings now, but I still get embarrassed. And she looked at me and she said, "You're right there, love." And I looked at her and nodded. I was kind of hoping my response of, "Yeah, just feeling a bit queasy. I think I need food," would satisfy her curiosity. I don't think it did, though. I think she knew there was something else going on. Now, I've been in that shop a few years back, and there was no detrimental issues or effects on me. And it made me wonder if my skills have levelled up enough to alarm demonic beings present, or if there'd been a trauma experienced in that shop which had attracted long-term dark energy squatters in the back of that store. And they just simply wanted to stay there. Now, also too, I'm thinking they could have been attached to someone that worked in the shop. But then if that was the case, they would follow that person around. They'd either be in their auric field. Sometimes they can be on the outside of people's energy fields, following them around with energy cording. But I think something's happened at the back of that shop. There may have been an argument, some sort of scuffle, something said that has created a vibration that attracted these 3, I think there was 4, sometimes they cloak themselves, there's always a few sneaky ones, that had attracted these energy beings. Now, I felt energetically much heavier leaving the shop, and I knew that the paranormal lurkers were following me home to observe me and decide on their next move. So when I got back to my friend's house, she was busy doing something, so I just sat at the dining room table and I spoke to these energetic intruders just as I did in episode 8 when I had unhappy long-distance energy beings running amok in my home. They caused all sorts of electrical issues, dream issues, oh my gosh. If you want to check out episode 8, you'll hear about my experience. I live in Tasmania. And this was an experience from the United States, where a very large horde of demonic beings that are in a very well-known haunted house got slightly upset when I was sent the address by someone in their ego. But anyway, if you want to have a look at that, episode 8 of this podcast will be the one for you. Now, what I did with these 3 or more energy beings that were observing me, I just sat quietly and calmly, and I just reassured them that I had no intention of carrying out any energy clearing in that shop, on the property, in the car park, and that I was merely going there to do some shopping. Now, because I'm a bit OCD, I tend to repeat the messages. So I repeated that message to them a few times. And then I just pretended to ignore them. And within about 20 minutes, the energy of where I was sitting in that dining room improved. It felt lighter and brighter. And I felt no more kind of head spinning, feeling wobbly, brain fog, or stomach churning. Now, because I stayed at my friend's place for an extended period, I had to go to that shop numerous times. And every time I would pull into the car park, I would sit there and go, I'm only here to do some shopping. And when I entered the shop again, there was less resistance. There was still a little bit, because they're always a little bit doubtful. They're always a little bit dubious about human beings' honesty and their intentions. But I think they'd read me pretty well. They knew by observing me sort of week or 2 weeks ago that I had good intentions. I'm simply just doing some shopping and they need to leave me be. Now, I knew this time to just talk to them as I walked around the shop, and I did it under my breath so that the other shoppers didn't think I was a little bit crazy. And I just did my shopping as quickly as possible and left. No one followed me home. They'd got the message that I was simply just doing shopping. But because energy workers, I feel we carry a brighter vibration, a brighter aura. We must pump out a different level of energy to the average person that doesn't do psychic work on a daily basis. And these energy beings get their knickers in a twist. Like they simply get upset and feel threatened. I find that quite funny. But anyway, so it'll be interesting to see next time I go and stay with my friend if those energy beings are still there. Now, what I'm going to share with you next, oh my goodness, I have for you the funny and not so funny physical tactics and symptoms that I experience, mostly of a nighttime, by these paranormal beings. Because they think that we're unaware of a nighttime, and I know what their tactics are like. But I have had some really, really annoying, some quite disturbing, and others are just plain downright pain in the neck. Now, I've called this little story Bedtime Antics. Well, where do I start? I mean, I could mention the electric shocks. And boy, these are the tactic that make me jump the most. And I do sometimes swear out of pure frustration. So some of these demonic beings will use electric shocks quite often to threaten me, or to make me feel uncomfortable, or to distract me away from a job that I'm about to start. And sometimes they'll lurk in my home, or they'll lurk outside my house, down the street, and just wait till I go to bed. And then they come back with their little bit of retaliation, their little bit of revenge in the form of electric shocks. Now, I've experienced electric shocks to my eyelids, which I must say were not very pleasant. Now, this wasn't by a demonic being. This was by an upset spirit in how can I put it? It was a hospital location. I was staying in some accommodation that used to be the accommodation for nursing staff. And I didn't at that time realise I had to ask permission to enter the bedroom and just state how long I would be there. And I found out pretty quickly that when it comes to medical staff, you have to be extremely polite, extremely organised, and just let them know ahead of time that you're going to be staying in room 22 at this particular location and how long you're going to be there. And then they settle. But I was settling into sleep one night and I'm just lying on my back thinking about what a great day I'd had. And all of a sudden, I got these electric shocks that ran through both of my eyelids. Now, I sat up really, really fast. Oh my gosh. I hadn't experienced electric shocks like that before, and it wasn't once, it was twice. And I was a little bit rude. Like we humans, we tend to swear a little bit when we get shocked, or if we're a bit upset. And when I laid down, I got another one. And then when I tuned in and asked who was present, I saw a very matronly looking lady who had her arms folded and looking down at me with that power stare that they use on their staff members. And I apologised profusely because I realised that I was in someone's room. I was actually staying in one of the nursing staff's room. I mean, the lady may have been deceased. She may not be there now. She may be there now. I just didn't ask permission to enter and stay in that room. So every time I go there now to that location, I always have room 22. It was just my favourite. And I just let matron know that I'm going to be there and for how long. And I haven't had any more issues with electric shocks at that location. Now, when it comes to being at home, demonic beings love giving me electric shocks in my thighs, my calf muscles, and my ankles. Something else that I've experienced, now this has been by some angry elemental beings. I've been kicked in the kneecaps quite a few times by gnomes. Yes, gnomes do exist. I don't generally work in the realm of the elementals, fairies, pixies, gnomes, elves, the whole thing. It's just not my thing. I work with the dark and the demonic level beings. But I've been into people's homes and quite often I've experienced very adept, swift shin or knee kicks. And not just one, like 2, 3, 4. And these beings are very upset and it just makes my eyes water. When they kick me in the shin, I'm like, they just love attacking my legs, these energy beings. It's quite funny. So what I do with the angry elementals is that I just do the same thing I do with the dark energy beings, is that I calm them and I say, look, I've been employed to clear this home and you're not going to be hurt, you're not going to be harmed. You can stay in the house if you're quiet and you honour the homeowner's agreement. Usually these beings will honour a suggestion if they want to stay in a home, or they simply go back outside into the environment because the elemental beings are the nature carers. They care for the gardens, the forests. Sometimes they come into homes, especially gnomes. I've had 4 or 5 experiences with gnomes. They're quite interesting. They are what I call the bowerbirds of the elemental realm. They love things. So if you've got junk rooms or you've got an attic with lots of things in it and you start hearing scuffling or shuffling or things being dragged around of a night time and you know there's no one up there, you might have an elemental being that is fancying some of the treasures that you don't treasure so much anymore. Anyway, that's enough talking about elementals. Paranormal beings, like I mentioned before, know that mentally and emotionally, I am as tough as nails now. You have to be when you work with these beings. So, like I said, they always result to physical assaults and usually at bedtime. Now, the most common physical antics I have had to deal with are pinches, punches, pokes, prods and pushes. Always in bed. Just when I'm kind of nicely snuggled down and just starting to drift off into sleep. And they just come straight at me with this continual assault. Oh my goodness. One night the push I received was so hard that I literally rolled halfway across the bed. And I have to say that I'm no lightweight. So this push must have come from 3, 4 or 5 of these energy beings going, we want your attention. Now, I don't bother getting angry anymore, like I said before. Otherwise, I create the vibration of hostility. Now, this is what I've learned from these beings. I'm not outwardly hostile, but in my mind, I can create hostility towards them because they're upsetting my sleep, upsetting my work, just messing with my daily structure and my daily functioning. So instead, my response to these nighttime naughties is, it's okay. You won't be harmed. You just have to move to another location. This is the standard message that I give these beings when I'm about to start an energy clearing job, because that's the usual time that they'll come in, and the pushes and the prods and the electric shocks. It all starts happening when these beings are about to be energetically evicted from someone's home. Now, the other funny thing is that it's not always dark or demonic beings that will want our attention. Sometimes it can be one spirit, but usually it's groups. I get the groups, 10, 20, 30, 40. I think one night I had 200 in one group. And they're all wanting to transition into the afterlife. And they can use the same poking and prodding antics that the demonic beings do. And the reply that I use with these energy beings is, I can't help you now. I need to get some sleep. Please come back in the morning. Or please wait outside my house till the morning. And when you see me sitting at my desk, you are welcome to enter. Now, generally, they will go along with the request. And now I don't get up in the middle of the night and do energy clearings, because once they see that it's like an energetic light bulb switches on, they're like, oh, she's starting work. We're going to come in now. Because you've got to remember, dark and demonic beings, spirits, elementals, they don't work with time like we do. Now, way back in episode 7, I talked about brain fog and how paranormal beings use this mind-numbing tactic to throw us off the scent, to delay our arrival, to send us off to the wrong address, or to send me off into the middle of a bush track out in the middle of nowhere sometimes, which actually happened one day. That was really funny. I took a wrong turn, and I've learnt now that if I'm going in a direction where I feel isn't right, I will just turn around and go back to where I started from. They're very good at manipulating my map following skills, if you want to look at it that way. Now, I've had this happen to me many times when visiting prospective house clearing clients. But this next experience takes the cake, as we Aussies say. This wasn't going to someone's house for a house clearing job. This was something else. And I've called this experience Buddha bewilderment. Now, as most people do, I go through bouts of decluttering. And I had 2 wooden Buddha statues that had been on my hit list for rehoming for quite a while now. So I sold one of them through an online platform to a local, and I said that I'd deliver it on the weekend at his designated time. So I got myself organised, and on Saturday, setting out to get this statue to its new home, I had my iPad with the map app open to help me find the address. But also looked it up in a road index, and I knew the area, so I didn't think it would be hard for me to deliver this statue. Now, I always research where I'm going the night before, because I know that paranormal beings know that I'm a little bit useless when it comes to reading maps. Oh my goodness, bit of brain fog, and I am totally distracted. I just can't follow a map. Now, when I got closer to this suburb, do you think I could find the street, let alone the house? No, and double no. Now, very calmly, because remember, if I get upset, especially in the car, I create hostility. I drove and drove and drove around for at least 30 minutes. And as I'm driving, the brain fog is thickening, like it was a blanket over my mind. And there's no way I could remove it. I didn't have my folder. I didn't have my pendulum with me. And I'm like, I'm just going to have to work this out. I've got my iPad, I've got my phone. I actually messaged the man to say that I'm running late. And he's like, I did wonder where you'd got to. I said, look, I'm nearly there. I didn't tell him the troubles I was having. He would have thought I was a bit of a crazy person. But anyway, so I pulled over and I looked at the map again. So what I did, I found the nearest street. Now, as I took off again, I found my way to the man's house. And I delivered this statue to him, and he was very, very happy. As I drove away, the brain fog cleared instantly. And I did swear sort of quietly to myself under my breath for the next 5 minutes. But in the end, I just kind of laughed it off as stressed paranormals, either in that house or in the street, who thought they had to move out. Now, you're going to find this interesting too. Back in episode 6, I talked about entering a friend's house, going to see Kim for an afternoon cup of tea and a chat. When I entered her door, I experienced a very sudden gagging cough, and it just came out of nowhere. Like I wasn't sick. She didn't have any air fresheners or any sort of those smelly candles that would have activated my cough in my throat. It just came out of nowhere. And she's looking at me, and I'm bent over, and like I am coughing and coughing and coughing. It's like when you swallow something. And it's like when you, how can I explain it? It's like when you breathe in crumbs and they kind of stick to the back of your neck and you have to cough and cough and cough and cough to remove them. And I mean, I'm leaning over and I've got teary eyes and I've got a runny nose. It really wasn't a very pleasant sight at all. And another time, when I walked into an abandoned location, this was when I was employed as a paranormal tour guide. We're setting up for the night and I'm in this location, putting out the REM pods and getting the little light balls ready for the spirits to come and interact with. And I went into one room and I got a bit of a head spin and it was like, whoa, I feel a bit dizzy. And the next thing, it was like a 2-finger poke in that area in your throat where the 2 bones are, where your collarbone is. It was like an instant poke. And if it had been any harder, I probably wouldn't have been able to breathe at all. I was bent over and I was coughing and coughing and my head was spinning and I was feeling very, very unwell. I literally collapsed to the floor because I thought if I fall over, I'm going to hit my head and hurt myself. So I just allowed myself to kind of slide down the wall and just sit there. And one of the other ladies came and she said, I heard you coughing. Are you okay? And I'm putting my hand up and I'm still sort of coughing and I've got my hand up going, I'm okay. And it took about 10 minutes for that poke in the throat cough to disappear. These are some of the things that people go through when they do energy work. Now, these are only some of the things I've experienced. If you're an energy worker and you've experienced paranormal interruptions or interference or any of the tactics that they have used on you to stop you doing your work, I would love to hear about them. And we could share them with everyone out there so people can understand what we go through as energy workers. If you're interested, you can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com and my website address is in the description box. Now, many energy healers and clearers assume that their protection methods will shield them from dark and demonic beings. This perception is not always accurate. It's in the nature of some of these high-level dark and especially the demonic beings to attach to a new host when removed from the original host during an energy clearing session. And a lot of energy healers don't think about this. It's whether they don't acknowledge that it's real or they just don't want to think about it because it's too scary. I never do my energy work with other people in the same room as me, and I always clear my house. I've become seriously OCD about checking, always clearing my house before my family come to visit or before one of my kids still lives here, before that person comes home. I'm always checking this house to make sure it's energetically clean. Now, this is something I always say to energy healers, people coming into the business, whether they're doing Reiki or sound therapy, anywhere where you're doing activities with people to help raise their vibration. You might disturb some paranormal beings that have been lurking within a person. So please don't be complacent when you are working with your clients. Energy workers consciously, or sometimes subconsciously, create energy cording into their clients. I know that I do. I'm about to tune into a home in Italy this afternoon. And I'm in Tasmania. And with the permission of the owner, floor plans, photos, etc., I'm allowed to enter that property to do an energy clearing. And I know, soon as I ask permission of the land to enter, I'm creating that cord, which then alerts any paranormal beings in the building, in the land, in the vicinity to my presence. Now, this stuff is not fantasy. I do this work every day, every week, every month of the year. I know how these beings think. I don't know everything, but I know enough to keep myself safe, keep my clients safe, to work on homes, properties, cars, caravans, chickens, dogs, cats, and the rest, and help them live in a higher vibration. But the connection creates a tunnel through which these low vibrational energies can travel. I've only got to stare at their eyes or look their face on their website, and within 1 minute of talking to the person or seeing them or looking at them or talking to them through an online platform, these energy beings are coming to me. Now, this is an extreme case. This does not happen to everyone, so please don't be fearful about doing energy work. I am an extreme case because I do this work with demonic beings all the time. Generally, they will ignore some energy workers. They don't feel that you're a threat. If they do feel that you're a threat, then you are going to experience personal symptoms in your home, in your car, on the land, with your electrics, with the plumbing in your house. They will let you know they're there and they're not happy. Now, paranormal beings such as ghosts or spirits, they don't generally cause this much disruption. They will use the pokes and the prods, and you might get a glass fall off a counter, or your TV might flicker, or they turn something on in the middle of the night. Often that's because spirits want to let you know that they're there. Often if they're in energy clearers' homes, it's because they've read your vibration, like I talked about earlier, and gone, oh, she can help me. And off they come with their suitcase and they're ready to go and be with mum and dad that have passed over. So they're coming to you for help. That is the only reason why they're generally in energy clearers' homes. Now, sometimes, contradicting what I've just said, spirits can be annoyed when people move into their homes. Because sometimes people die very suddenly. They don't know that they're dead. Energy work is so complicated, it's really hard to explain anything and everything about it, but I do my best and I hope the message is getting across. Now, energy workers, as we know, have the capacity to cleanse, clear and purify spaces, and their skills allow them to remove these entities, transition spirits, and generally restore harmony to a location or a person. Now, these paranormal beings quite often like to thrive in chaos. They love chaotic, energetic environments. They love stagnant environments. And the arrival of an energy worker, whether it's remotely, the way I work around the world, or whether you're in person, this can really disrupt their existence. The focused attention and directed energy of the worker can diminish their influence, but sometimes they don't like it. And they will cloak themselves or they'll hide in a location. I've had them hide under my bed. This is why now I'm very OCD about checking my house before I go to bed. I check the house, I check myself, I check my bed specifically to make sure that there's nothing lurking that's going to give me those poking, prodding or electric shocks. Now, through many years of experience, some energy workers like myself, can learn to directly engage with these beings. And I often negotiate the boundaries and I provide guidance for their transition. Now, this can be the demonic beings can transition, and the dark energies, I'm not including everyone. They can transition back out into the environment, but also they have a space in the afterlife, in the waiting room. They don't get a full ticket. They're not allowed to go fully off into mass consciousness. They have to do some work on themselves first. So they go to a place that I call the healing space. It is a neutral zone. They get a fresh start. They can work on themselves. I actually don't have any more information about that. I help to transition them there, but they haven't actually shared much more information about what happens to them once they release all those eons of trauma and all the things that they've caused and created. I don't know where they go next. But as soon as I know, I'm going to be sharing it with you. So in episode 40, I'm talking with Brandy Van from brandyvan.com. Brandy is a spiritual medium and a psychic abilities mentor, and she has some really interesting paranormal experiences to share with us. And she's also going to open our eyes to the spiritual and paranormal world from a medium's perspective. So thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording, or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.